setting up a meeting is tough, right? There's no way around it. The moving pieces of putting together a meeting, we're about to explain to you some of them, but there are perks. I mean, there are nice side effects, but people don't seem to understand. They say, oh, wow, you get to hang out with the Cheetahs. You got to ride in Jerry Jones. Yeah, go spend $250,000 in rooms and another $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 in catering. And when you've paid $500,000 to $600,000, you too will get a ride on a helicopter. So it's not like it's for free. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the OrthoPreneurs podcast. Today, I have one of my partners in crime, Mike Vidikan. Mike, I almost said Dr. Mike Vidikan, which has a nice ring to it.
Doctor, I've done a lot of CE though, so I'm like almost there.
You're almost a doctor, quasi-doctor, Mike Vidikan. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
So for those of you who don't know who Mike Vidikan is both a friend of mine, but for purposes of this discussion, more importantly, he's director of all things OrthoPreneurs. And so if you've been to Summit, that's Mike's doing. If you've taken a class at OrthoPreneurs University, that'd also be a part of Mike's job. If you've seen an advertisement or anything related to OrthoPreneurs, that'd be Mike. You belong to OrthoPreneurs RD, you sure know who Mike Vidikan is. And pretty much everything we do with OrthoPreneurs has Mike's hand in it. And so I figured, we talked about it, it would be a great idea to give you a little bit of a backstage tour, if you will, of what goes on in putting together a summit, what goes on in putting together a lot of the stuff we do, and to help you learn and understand a little bit more about, what you see front stage, what's really happening backstage. And so, Mike, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, definitely happy to share all that with people, give them a tour of kind of what we put into it.
So let's start here. One of the most common questions we get is back in 2017, when OrthoPreneurs started, how did you get involved in OrthoPreneurs? I'll let you tell that story because...
hey, we started this in the kitchen of our synagogue. We were sitting there one day making, lox platters, deviled eggs, maybe drinking a little bit of whiskey. And, I was probably talking about Bitcoin or Ethereum or, whatever latest technology. And you said you had this idea for OrthoPreneurs and just weren't sure how to get it going. And I threw out a bunch of technologies. I said, oh, that's easy. We could use, Google Forms and Sheets and throw together, DocuSign and put together some back-end systems and use Square or Stripe for payment processing. And he said, okay, great. Do it.
L'chaim.
That was it. And I think we met a week later. We just wrote it all out, signed up for all the things. We created a website, got it all together really quickly. And next thing you know, we had 40 something RD members.
Yeah.
And
I can't even remember. I honestly have forgotten I remember talking to you about it, and I remember RD getting started. I just don't even remember creating a web page. Like, it's all that stuff is such a blur to me.
Yeah, you found some random guy.
6.5 years ago.
Yeah, totally. Found some random guy to build a web page, and it worked. And
I found some random guy. Hey, dude,
random guy.
Okay.
It took me years to actually get the login to get back into the website to be able to change it to what we have now.
I remember that. I remember that because we had no idea who made it or where it came from or what was going on.
Yeah, digging around trying to find the guy.
Do you mind give everybody a little bit of a background of what your life was like beforehand? What did you do beforehand? Because I want people to recognize that you're more than just a dude who's the director of OrthoPreneurs. You've got a significant background in technology, futurism, if such a word exists.
Yeah, it does. Basically, I spent about 6 to 8 years before joining you with OrthoPreneurs, really running a consultancy. I was helping large corporations monitor trends, right? Technology trends, consumer trends. I was consulting with General Motors on the future of auto dealerships. I was working with Hershey's on the future of snacking.
That sounds like my kind of consultancy right there. The future of snacking.
The future of snacking. It's good. There was a lot of recommendations around beef jerky for them.
Oddly enough, Mike and I both make our own beef jerky. So go figure.
I did a talk at Colgate, actually, on the future of home technology. And so actually I came up with some amazing concepts and they seemed to love it. But that was years back, and I don't know, published maybe 100 or so trend reports on really just everything from, blockchain to virtual reality to augmented reality, digital twins, 3D printing,
It's
pretty
amazing.
much everything.
It's amazing. And it dovetailed beautifully with what we're doing. And so
Yeah.
you came in, we had the Orthopreneurs Facebook group. We did Orthopreneurs RD at that point, because I think I'd started Orthopreneurs itself, like the Facebook group,
Yep.
before we had talked. And you came in because people wanted the RD group. And so we started that together. And then we did the first summit in 2018, right?
Yeah, it was something like 4 or 6 weeks after starting the RD group. I remember at some point we just, we'd meet, and it was just at that point about the administration of the group and
Right.
how it was going to work when people applied and how we were going to actually get people in and all that. And you said, I think I really need a meeting. I think I really need an annual meeting. And I don't remember if it was 6 or 8 weeks after. There was some point that you said, we need this annual meeting. And we started talking Vegas, Chicago, LA. All of a sudden I said, well, how about if we stick to Dallas? And we started scoping out kind of what that might look like. And I remember going and seeing something like 25 hotels in the area before we found the one.
Yeah, I felt, my feeling was, because we glossed over it real quickly, my feeling was at the time that there were meetings, right? If you went, MKS, run by Ben Burris, was the first meeting that I'd really ever attended in ortho that wasn't a product meeting, right? There's lots of companies out there that run their own product meetings, and there was the AAO, but the AAO to me was a place where I met a ton of friends, didn't really sit in on a whole lot of lectures that really made a difference in my practice life, let alone the business side of things. I think I told you what GORP was. I think I explained to you what GORP was, and that we needed a meeting that made people feel like they were back at GORP, but with useful information for their practices. That they needed to be nourished from, like they came into our home and we're taking care of them, and to give them an over the top experience while they made their practices better, because I didn't feel that existed out in ortho. And we went and looked at the hotel at Frisco. It hadn't been built yet, right? The Omni Frisco, where the Dallas Cowboys headquarters is connected. And for those of you out there, when you sign on the dotted line for I think $250,000 in rooms, which, by the way, everybody, when we sign up with a hotel, we're on the hook for all the hotel rooms. So if nobody shows up, we spend, now it's over $1 million. It's millions of dollars now. But back then it was $250,000 that I didn't have if the meeting didn't happen. But when you sign up for that kind of money, you get all sorts of amenities. And so here's 2 fun facts. The first fun fact is that when you do this, they offer you, like, the opening night of the hotel. I would have been allowed to stay there with my wife and had a great weekend at this beautiful hotel in their sort of grand opening.
Forgot about that.
And they had the whole grand opening, and they said, and on Sunday morning, we will fly you
in
from
Jerry Jones' private helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. They'll fly you directly from the Dallas Cowboys headquarters, which was attached to the hotel, to AT&T Stadium to watch the Cowboys. I think it was the Rams they were going to play against. And they put you on Jerry Jones's helicopter because, again, I signed on the dotted line before the hotel was even built. So they want to say thank you. So I would have flown on Jerry Jones's helicopter from Dallas Cowboys headquarters directly to AT&T Stadium, landed, I guess, at their helipad, and been escorted into his private box or something. And I said to them, do I have to root for the Cowboys? And they said, of course. I said, good, I'll pass. And so to this day, one of my fun facts is that I turned down a ride on Jerry Jones's private helicopter and his box solely because I refused to root for the Cowboys.
There was also the fact that it was, I believe, the day after Yom Kippur.
It was, but we could have done the game. I couldn't stay for the weekend, but the game could have happened. And I just, no, thank you. If I have to root for the Cowboys, I'd rather not do this. And the second fun fact was that right before they opened, they still weren't open yet, but they were showing us the ballroom. And you remember who they brought in to keep everybody company that day?
Cheerleaders?
Yeah, they brought in the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders were brought in so that everybody who was touring the hotel, the ballroom, got to hang out with the cheerleaders. And I got to tell you, folks, it was a very tough day for Mike and I. We had we soldiered through, but having to pose for photos with Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders all afternoon was a really tough day for us. And so people hear these stories, and it's kind of, setting up a meeting is tough, right? There's no way around it that the moving pieces of putting together a meeting, people we're about to explain to you some of them. But there are perks. I mean, there are nice side effects, but people don't seem to understand. They say, oh, wow, you get to hang out with the Cheetahs. You got to ride in Jerry Jones. Yeah, go spend $250,000 in rooms and another $500,000 in catering. And when you've paid $500,000 to $600,000, you too will get a ride on a helicopter. So it's not like it's for free. Talk a little bit, Mike, about some of the challenges we had with that first meeting. What were some of the tougher things? I can name a couple, but I want to hear what yours are about the toughest challenges we faced with that meeting.
Oh, I mean, there's some great stories behind the scenes. I mean, first, just didn't know what we were getting into. One of them was just registration, right? Just the idea that you're going to have hundreds of people showing up and checking in. And if you've never had that before, what do you do? And so that was one piece of it. And let me just take one step back. So I thought you were a little bit crazy when you explained to me what your vision for this meeting was, because first of all, you said, hey, I want to have this meeting, but I want lots of surprises. And I want to have morning workouts. And I thought, I've never been to a meeting with a morning workout. I don't know if that's a normal ortho thing. I've never heard of such a thing before. Who wants to have a workout at 5:30 in the morning? What kind of audience are you actually catering to here?
Right. And that workout had like 40 people at it that morning.
That workout was crazy. It was on the field. For those that don't know, you really do have to go look up the Omni. I think it's called the Omni Star. That hotel is awesome. It's got this makeshift field. It's kind of looks like a
50-yard turf field.
Yeah. And the workout was out there. I remember you said you wanted a boot camp. We found some group to run the boot camp Friday morning. And so they were out running lines, doing push-ups, doing burpees, right? All the calisthenics. And then the Saturday morning, we arranged, I believe, for the workout to be actually at the Cowboys training center.
Cowboy Fit, right?
Cowboy Fit.
It was the training place attached to the Cowboys facility.
Yeah, and I think that even included a tour of like where the Cowboys work out and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but what I didn't realize at the time was that required me to be up at 5 a.m. to make sure stuff was set up. And then that also meant that with the evening events, I had to make sure it got shut down properly. And so, I had like 3 hours of sleep for 3 days in a row.
You just reminded me, the evening events. There's something that people may not be aware of. So Concrete Cowboy was right across the street. And we brought in Josh.
Josh Wolf.
Josh Wolf, a comedian who later on basically went blue in Austin and turned off half the crowd, even though we told him not to go blue. We told him not to be dirty, and yet he went dirty in Austin. But he wasn't dirty at Concrete Cowboy. And we thought it would be an amazing idea to have this comedian to entertain people. And so we went down there. We checked out the audio system. It was perfect. And then Josh goes on, and you can't understand a word he's saying because unbeknownst to anybody, the audio system was tuned for music, not voice. And so I remember him creating, he told us later that was like one of the greatest growing experiences of his comedic career because he couldn't do what he expected to do. And it became like comedy in the round. Mm-hmm. So suddenly everybody got around him and he was in the middle. And it turned out everybody who saw it loved it. And he seemed to enjoy it, but man, that one was crazy.
Yeah, and the issue there was that you could only hear it if you were directly under a speaker. So people had to position themselves.
In the bathroom.
Oh, really?
Oh, you didn't know that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, because it was piped into the bathroom where it had perfect acoustics. So if you sat in the bathroom, you could hear every word he said. But if you were anywhere else, you couldn't hear a thing. And that one, there were orthodontists who got thrown out of Concrete Cowboy. I can tell you that for a fact. Not mentioning names, but you know who you are, was actually thrown out of Concrete Cowboy. There were people who were belle of the ball and dancing like crazy with every person they could. That was a great kickoff to all the summits. And
then there's the stuff that nobody knows because they don't see the behind the scenes stuff. So the other issue, right, was our big Saturday night event where, again, I thought you were a little bit crazy. You wanted games. So we ordered every single game.
Oh my God, I totally forgot this.
So you wanted every single game, and it was everything from like LED cornhole to mini golf to skee ball to all these different games.
Don't forget
the mechanical bull and sumo wrestling suits.
Yeah, Akash Panja and myself almost dropped dead in
That
those
was
sumo.
amazing.
We wrestled each other, and they are so heavy that we just fell down and sat
Yeah.
next to each other. Said, "I'm not getting up." He said, "I'm not getting up," and we
It
just
was a hit, but I remember at the time I had to help. We had to lay out where the games were going to go with the hotel. So I was working with the hotel on the layout. And I remember precisely them creating something, and they said, well, there's not enough room for all of these things. You're going to have to remove some things. And I remember saying to you, there's no room for this sumo wrestling thing. We got to get rid of it. And you said, no, we will not get rid of the sumo
we will
wrestling.
not get rid of sumo wrestling. But the part I thought you were going to talk about
Let's go.
was the fact that we're sitting there when all of a sudden the guys who are delivering like 10 trucks full of games, unassembled, I might add, come and say, we can't, this hotel doesn't have a loading dock tall enough to let our trucks in. And so you have these trucks filled with these games on the street, and we've got like an hour and a half before the thing happens, because the lectures are over and now everybody's getting ready, they're in the rooms, and we've got the entire AV crew from Alfred Media, us, I think Noam Green was part of it, or like everybody was running out to the street to grab pieces of games, of skee ball, of LED stuff.
I was carrying the
I
bull.
walked with somebody carrying a bull's head from the disassembled bull.
Yep.
And we got it all in the room. And thank God for Alfred's AV team. They put it all together, made sure the electronics worked. But nobody knew that happened, because it was,
literally, we started about 3 minutes later than we were supposed to. People were lined up outside the door, and everything was where it was supposed to be. And they were having drinks out in the foyer space, and then the ballroom opened up, and people came in, and they were like, "Whoa, this is amazing!"
Yeah,
and remember, we had the speed painter too.
The speed painter, I remember him. He did Ray Charles, I think. Yeah, it was great. That was a great meeting. And so now it's evolved, and we're not going to bore you to death with every single thing that's occurred. But, there's some now in 2023, we just finished ours in Orlando, and next year is going to be on a boat. And I do want to jump in a moment and talk a little bit about the differences when you're doing it on a boat and what people don't know about a boat. But approximately, including sponsors, how many people did we have at 2023 registered?
950 attendees.
Yeah, plus probably another 250.
Plus another 200, 300 sponsors, 1,200. Yeah.
And we had about 275 at the first one. So it's definitely grown. It's changed. Certainly registration's been outsourced at this point, right? So we use companies that help us with registration.
Yep.
We've learned to have assistants who sort of shadow you.
Yeah,
so
quick fun fact was 2019 when we did registration, hired 8 people off of Craigslist.
Yeah, that was like going to a homeless shelter that day.
Yes.
Like when they showed up, for everybody out there, when these 8 people from Craigslist showed up, it was like a homeless shelter had sent us 8 people to work.
Well, we had to find just people on the fly, and putting together the swag bags was, the same people. So it was like, hey guys, you're going to work registration and put the swag bags together. So here's
and they walked off with our stuff. Remember, all our stuff got stolen. After everything was done, I'm like, where's the extra, Mike? Mike is, where is the extra? And there was none. All the swag somehow disappeared. So it's kind of interesting how these things sorts are happening. What's also cool is we have all these mascots who come through. So they're very serious. They will not break character. But when you're the one writing the check, you get to meet all of them as human beings, which is kind of interesting to know who's behind each mask and each Star Wars. And by the way, one of the funniest moments I think of any of the summits is when we were in it was Austin with Star Wars, right? Austin. Mm-hmm. And we hired Mike said, it's going to be awesome. We've got these stormtroopers who are going to come in with Darth Vader, and they're going to throw t-shirts. They're going to throw t-shirts out to everybody, which sounded like a great idea until we realized that Darth Vader has clearly never played any baseball or throwing sport in his or her entire life, and physically couldn't throw a t-shirt more than about 5 feet. And I just remember breaking down laughing, going, never thought you'd have to vet Darth Vader for throwing skill.
It's also possible it was just limited, with the uniforms and
I know it was like watching a T-Rex try to throw a football. It was really funny. And so if you don't mind going real quickly,
Yeah.
what are some of the, give people an idea for like a meeting like the one we just had in Orlando. Just give me 30 seconds of tasks that you have to handle before the meeting.
Yeah. First of all, you got to do AV setup. You've got to pick, an actual AV team, and you've got to figure out what the setup's going to look like. I'm ordering white leather couches and glow cubes, and you got to place the order for all these things and pick the times. Got to work with the hotel on the loading docks. You're picking swag
By
for.
the way, checking the hotel with loading docks, people, you don't understand. There's a specific time that you're allowed to load in your stuff and a specific time you load out. And when we
And
did Dallas, the elevator broke and the team loading out couldn't load out their stuff. So our group could not load in until later. And you guessed it, folks, when they work past a certain time, you're now paying overtime and a lot. And we're talking in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars of overtime.
yes,
So
and when
yeah,
you say
load in, load out,
broke, you actually mean that somebody accidentally pressed the fire
emergency stop
alarm
button.
thing and they didn't realize it for an hour. So they couldn't figure out how to get it going, and then they realized if they just pushed the button back in, it would work again.
Yeah. And that's how you stress everyone out and cost us tens of thousands of dollars.
But different hotels have different loading docks. So some hotels have 2 loading docks, some might have 3, and you've got to work with others. So you might have to plan that whole thing out. We would order swag. Some years we've ordered swag to the hotel and then assemble it there, which then means you need to make sure you've got your team ready to put it all together, and you're making 1,200 bags. I think we did 1,300 bags this year of various swag, and each item you're ordering 1,300 of everything.
Wow.
This year, one of the things I streamlined was instead of having the sponsors put all of their little postcards and stuff in the swag bag, we made basically an ad special book, right? Like a show special book. So actually collecting all those ads in advance, make one nice book that we stuck on all the seats. In previous years, imagine adding 75 different items to the bag. So it took days, literally 2 days, to put all these swags together with teams of 10, 12 people. I remember your ortho team having your staff coming in and actually helping because we needed extra bodies. And
I remember that.
2 hours, and they would walk in circles. Each one would grab an item and just walk in circles, dropping the stuff in the bags.
That was crazy. I remember our entire team was in a bucket brigade line doing that.
Yeah, because we just needed warm bodies to just help us. Picking the menus. Like what a lot of people don't know is I'm a foodie, so I love it. But I sit down with the hotel menus and customize everything because I know we've got vegetarians, we got vegans, we've got gluten-free, we've got dairy-free, we've got kosher, we've got some halal, we've got all, some people are allergic to mango and watermelon and sumac. And so I'm sitting there creating, all the dietary needs and really looking through. And so every single snack, every lunch, every breakfast, every dinner, everything I go through is with all of this stuff in mind. So there are times where, we might have a lot of extra, taco bars, but that's because it's also very gluten-free for people. And it's really picking out all of those different items. And then there's all the experiential stuff too, right? All the surprises we throw into the meetings, having to source stuff, having to look up different entertainers, sometimes negotiate with people, looking up national anthem acts, trying to call around to see if we can bring in veterans to present the colors.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everything it's unbelievable. Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the ship for next year because that changes the whole ball game. Because suddenly there are things like we don't have to hire a full AV crew because the ship has a full amphitheater that's already wired up, and we may add some things to it. But you're not talking about spending $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 of additional revenue just for lighting and audio and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Check-in, right? Registration is done by them because every person who checks in has to check in
It's amazing.
for the cruise. So when they do, they're happy to give the lanyard and the swag, or they can drop it off at every room if we wanted it to. What are some other things that are either challenges or advantages, do you think, of being on a ship next year?
Well, one of the big advantages is food. I mean, for me, the food, usually with the hotels, you've got to pick specific times. And sometimes I'm negotiating with them over coffee. For people that aren't planning these events, they don't realize that sometimes they don't include coffee in snack breaks. So then you're paying on consumption, and they charge you about $8 a cup of coffee.
Yeah, which
which
is
is
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, the people don't realize what consumption is. So when you go to a meeting, not just our meeting, but almost any meeting out there, whether it's 10 people or
Yep.
10,000 people, when you get a snack break and you go grab a can of Coke, right?
Oh my
There's cans
God.
of Coke or whatever, or a bottle of Perrier, and you grab it.
$6, $6 to $8 for a can of Coke. Just
Yeah,
know
you're going to pay
that.
$6 to $8. So when you take it back to your room to give it to your spouse, that's great. But whoever is running that meeting is probably spending $6 to $8 for every can of Coke. And the hotels, what people don't know is their costs are insane, right? Like a bottle of water, what you pay for in the hotel room is not radically different from what you're going to pay for a bottle of water for an attendee at your meeting. The
Mm-hmm.
only difference is they're going to add 38% to that as well, right, Mike?
Yep.
So they're
Yeah,
going to say
exactly.
20% gratuity and 18% service charge. So if your meal for a day, right, and the average hotel that we use, a person's meals for the day, not including the nighttime entertainment stuff, is probably somewhere around $150 to $200 a day, right?
Could be more. I mean, yeah. I mean, breakfast alone, you're talking about $40 a person, right? For whatever the grab and go stuff is. Snack breaks run $30 a person just for snack breaks, right? You walk in, you grab a little something, you have a cup of coffee. Your lunches are about $70, you
It
know.
gets crazy, people.
And then
And
and
we're not
then
complaining.
dinners run about 125 a person. You're talking about the and then happy hours, right? We include the happy hours, and people just go grab drinks and have fun. And
Yeah.
some cases are paying, you're paying 15, $16 a drink for them. So
Yeah. And
I've seen
again, to
some
be
people double fisting.
I want to be clear for everybody that we're not complaining. We're just giving you some insight behind it. But just know when you're at a meeting, if it's a small organization with not a big budget and you're just grabbing drinks to take with you to go later, just know it does cost them a ton of money
Yeah.
for that. It's something you should be aware of, I think. The ship, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, right? Because people get their own drink package and food is pretty much available whenever they want it.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that's one of the great things about the ship is that they've got a 24-hour cafe. I think the Windjammer is 24-hour.
Yeah,
So you can pretty much go in anytime you want, grab food. We don't have to deal with set times where, lunch is a specific hour. And if the speakers go late, maybe lunch has been sitting out for 15 minutes. Here, you go get your ice cream cone anytime you want on the deck.
exactly. And one of the fun things about it is people always ask, "How do you get a ship? Like, how do you get a ship?" Right? And so we were talking about. I don't remember how the conversation started. Where I said, "You know what? I'd love to try a cruise. Like, I'd love because we always want to hold it someplace where people can enjoy themselves, or
Mhm.
maybe there's more to do than just that location." So again, I have nothing against St. Louis. St. Louis is a great city, but there's not a lot for us to take people to or do around St. Louis, right? And there's so many great cities that are somewhere centralized in the country that you just don't have a million things to do, or that people don't want to go to. And so we've always looked at places, and we looked at the Southeast. But again, in September in the Southeast, since you're stationary, you could have weather, you could have a hurricane, what have you. The nice thing with a ship is they see it coming days in advance, and they can go anywhere they want. They can get as far away from bad weather as they want to. But I remember we had the idea of let's get a ship. And then did you ever in your wildest dreams think you'd have a negotiation with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines about renting their ship?
No, and for anybody out there, just know the legal documents that come with it, and you know, they are so hard to negotiate with. It's just is what it is. It's like your car rental agreement. I mean, imagine going to Avis or Budget, you rent your car, and they give you the form that you've got to fill out, and you go, "No, I don't like these terms in here." Yeah, what are you going to say? They're going to say to you, "Well, don't rent the car."
Right.
And that's it. Here, this stuff's in here, and you just have to do the due diligence on it. And just funny side fact is, I actually threw the contract into ChatGPT to try to identify some, areas of concern.
That's awesome. And for people out there who don't know, when you rent a hotel, right? And like the Omni Frisco, we took over pretty much the entire hotel.
Mm-hmm.
The Fairmont Austin, we took over most of the hotel. We didn't take over the entire Denver Sheraton because I think that was pretty freaking big.
Yeah,
Um, and the Orlando hotel, we took over
yeah, we
nowhere
took about
near
a
the whole
third.
hotel. We took over, right, what, 800 and change rooms of
Yeah,
2,000.
yeah,
So every
exactly.
hotel is different. But even if you take over the whole hotel or little of the hotel, you get negotiation, right? You can tell them, I want this, or I want that, or I want these amenities, or I want those amenities, or I want these extra rooms, or I don't want these extra rooms. There's always negotiation. With a cruise line, there's none. They give it to you at least the first time. We don't know about the
Mm-hmm.
second. We've been told that the first time you do a cruise ship, they treat you like garbage. The second time you do a cruise ship, they treat you like you're the king of, the world. And
Yeah,
so if
unfortunately, a
this,
lot of people default. And so apparently
yeah,
a lot of people default on it. They say, hey, this is a great idea. I'm going to sell out the whole cruise ship in a week. And then unfortunately, a lot of them don't, and then default on the payments. So
yeah,
they're very skeptical about first timers, but
not us.
yeah.
We made our payments. We're good to
No,
go.
we made our payments. We're on track for one of the fastest sellouts of charters that people have seen. So I mean,
Really.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. The ship is pretty cool. Just take 2 seconds to tell everybody about it. The ship it's a serenade of the seas. It's like 1,000 feet long. So I like to tell my wife that I own a 1,000-foot yacht. She just rolls her eyes at me. And I tell her it's for a week. But the good news is it has a few swimming pools. It's got kids care.
Yeah, amazing kids care. So I mean,
Yeah, amazing.
a lot of people are bringing families. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
just dump your kids off for the day,
Yeah.
dump them off at night. I mean, it's going to be great.
It's day and night. And I've told one mom, I said, when you put your kids in daycare and you're sitting at the adult only pool
Mhm.
with an adult beverage in your hand, enjoying the serenity, which is a great pool. The adult only pool is amazing. And you're doing it. You can just tell yourself you're not a bad parent. You're not. Because that's what I used to do. We drop our kids off at K. They didn't want to leave. We'd go visit them to make sure they
Yeah.
were okay. And they were like, get out of here. I mean, like 3 years old, and they don't even want to see us. They're having such a good time.
There's so much fun stuff for the kids. This isn't like you just hired a babysitter to sit in your hotel room and watch the kid.
Oh, yeah,
The kid's crying for mommy. You're dropping them off, and they've got characters, and they've got all sorts of fun stuff that they're doing. I mean, it's
and the best of all is they can't go anywhere. They're on a ship. They're not.
Yep.
Nobody can run off with them. Nothing can happen. These are all bonded. These people have been all security background checked, and they've done it for years. And Royal Caribbean takes it seriously. So that'll be fun. The pools, the climbing walls. We've definitely got surprises that we're putting together. To be continued or to be determined. You'll hear about it, but there's definitely going to be a lot of fun stuff that we're going to do. I'm definitely going to have some sort of belly flop contest. There has to be. There's got to be some sort of limbo contest of some sort somewhere. But it's going to be a good time. We're going to have a good time. September 18th to 22nd of 2024. Leaves from Tampa Bay at 4 p.m. So as long as you're there before 4 p.m., you're on the ship. Take off. We come back Sunday morning, the 22nd at 7 a.m. So you'd be home by lunch Sunday. And it should be an amazing trip. And cost-wise, the best part about the ship is that unlike a hotel where they control all the costs, because of the ship, because basically we buy the ship. Just so you all know, we pay a price. I'm not going to share it with you here. We pay a price and we own a ship. And anything we pretty much want to do, we can do. And so the rooms are set priced by us. And the best price is the best. There's very few exceptions where two people in a room with tickets to Summit don't come out way ahead on this cruise than a regular Summit where you have to pay for a hotel room and ticket. It's not even a fair fight.
No, because when we do a hotel, I mean, in order to get the meeting room, what a lot of people don't know is to get a ballroom that's 30,000 square feet, that's big enough to hold this meeting, you've got to take a block of 700-800 rooms, right? And it's not like I don't make a cent on selling rooms. That's the
People think we make money on rooms and they don't
you make
realize
zero money on rooms. You potentially lose money on rooms. You have to fill every single one of those rooms. Otherwise, you're paying for those rooms. So when you hear of meetings that, let's say they take on 800 rooms and they miss their attrition, so they only get 70% full, they then have to pay out of pocket for those other 10%. You don't get any commissions on any of these rooms. You don't get anything. That's just the privilege of running your meeting. You have to fill that. Whereas the ship, you basically just get everything. So my lower costs allow me to pass along the savings. I don't have to charge as much.
By the way, you sound like a mattress salesman there, by the way, for a second. The lower costs allow me to pass on the savings to you, the consumer. But the truth is, if we take the ship and nobody signed up, we own the ship. We could sail a 2,800 person ship with me and Mike on it and our wives, and that's it. You lose 7 figures worth of money and a whole lot more. But they don't make the money on the ship. We've already paid for it. So we can set the price wherever we want. And we chose to make it so affordable so that people can afford it. And it's kind of interesting. People ask us, why didn't you do Nashville? Why don't you do this hotel? Why don't you do that? What people don't understand is there are rules out there with hotels. And this is kind of a fun fact. There are certain hotels in certain cities that will not give you a room, period. You could say, I'll buy out your entire hotel on this date. And you go, can't, sorry, we have a citywide. We have to hold, the city has told us, we have to hold all the hotel rooms here in case there's a giant conference like an AAO or an ADA.
No,
or
and they're already bought out. So in some cases like Nashville, September, October, those get bought out for the next decade. So
Right.
I was speaking to a meeting planner actually about a week ago, and she was saying that she just did contracts for 2040, the year 2040. Because if you think about, I got to give a lot of credit to the AAO. They've got to think 5, 10, maybe 20 years ahead because they've got to plan things out. I mean, when you're that big, there's only a certain number of convention centers. Right. And so if you don't plan far enough out, you don't get it. You think about other meetings. I mean, we're trying to put ourselves on the map. We're trying to make sure that we've got a meeting every single year. And that's why it takes, sometimes you got to look out 2 years just to plan the meetings.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Mike and I are going to get on a plane and go to Vegas to go scout out Caesar's Palace for 2025. We've already signed the contract for 2 years from now for Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And we're going to go and we're going to check out what restaurants we want to have for people, what kind of food, what kind of entertainment, what kind of surprises, and we're going to put it all together. And so ideally, I mean, honestly, if you asked me, bottom of my heart, going through the cruise experience so far, I would love it if Summit were a Summit at sea every year. Like I would love it if we had a cruise from different ports potentially, but every single year would be a cruise because we could do it less expensively for people. B, it's a whole heck of a lot less work for us. And let's be honest, it's freaking cool as hell to have a cruise with 1,500 orthodontist teams, vendors together. The synergy that's going to happen on that ship is going to be insane because unlike a meeting on a hotel where we put people together, like this year at House of Blues at night or Andretti Racing at night, you could put people together. Some people were like too cool for that. So they go out to their own dinner, right? Some sponsors, unbeknownst to us, might take a couple of people out, right? And you're trying to create togetherness, but you don't necessarily get complete togetherness, right? Because we have buses going to and from the hotel to Andretti, but maybe someone doesn't want to get on the bus and they want to just go have dinner with their wife or their husband or whatever. The thing about the cruise, which is awesome, is that everybody's on the ship. Nobody's leaving. So you may say, you know what? I don't want to go to that. By the way, we're going to do something really cool probably on Friday night in terms of an event and a theme. I don't want to say out loud what we're thinking of. We don't know if we can pull it off prom, but I'm not saying that out loud. We're gonna keep it like that. But the point is, let's just say on Friday night, you don't want to go to the big event, right? You don't want to be doing whatever it is we're doing prom anywhere on the decks or anything like that. You could go take your husband or your wife, significant other, to one of the private dining restaurants, right? And go pay $30 or whatever it is, and go sit in a private dining and enjoy it. But when dinner's over and you walk the cruise, you're going to see 100 people you know. You're going to see a gazillion, and inevitably you're going to sit and talk. And the whole goal is to create those sort of micro conversations that are beyond just, hey, how are you doing? And get into, I'm facing this problem with my practice. And now this is the essence of why I created OrthoPreneurs Summit. And Mike knows this. It was to create a place where worrying about food and drink and entertainment no longer was your problem. Like AAO, you go to AAO, you see people during the day, and you may not see them again for 5 days or 4 days because you have to make your own dinner reservation. You've got to go come up with your own plan. Restaurants get sold out. And I swore I never wanted anybody to eat dinner alone.
I'll tell your story that you told me where you said, look, I was tired of going to meetings where there's no dinner plan. So I sat by myself. I would go to all these CE, I'd sit down at dinner, and I'd look over and I'd see another guy sitting by himself. And I'd have to kind of look at him and go, you want to sit? You want to sit over here next to me? You think maybe the two of us will talk? And it's like, no, instead of everybody having to go on their own and feel lonely and by themselves and not included, the whole thing was, how can we create a meeting that you bring everybody together and have them be together the whole time? And as this vision has kind of unfolded, you've seen it. You've seen this Orthopreneurs community really come together, and people have created, friendships, and
it's awesome.
For a lot of people, it's a tribe, it's family. I mean, I've heard of people doing things for each other that I never would have imagined.
I agree. And the whole thing that ran through my mind when we started OrthoPreneurs, and that's where the ship comes back in, is I remember the movie Color of Money. Paul Newman, Tom Cruise, young Tom Cruise as a pool hustler. And I remember they're telling him that the real money isn't made in the tournament. It's made in the back room after hours. And that's where the real money is made. And for me, the real learning happens, it happens on stage. But when you're sitting with a drink in your hand or at dinner, sitting with an orthodontist you may or may not know across the table from you, and you say, I just keep having this no-show rate on my new patients, and I do not know what to do with it. And all of a sudden, 5 orthodontists at the table give you how they handle it. To me, that was exactly why I started OrthoPreneurs. And the best part about the ship is that everybody's going to be together, and you're going to be sitting at the pool, and you're going to be sitting in lectures, and you're going to be sitting at bingo or limbo or belly flop contest or whatever events we do or private dining. And you're going to be talking about life and sharing. Generally speaking, most of the people there share the same struggles, because what we've learned as orthodontists is that nobody gets us better than us. Because like Rocket Raccoon, right? He's like, there is nobody like me but me, right? And there's nobody like orthodontists but orthodontists, right? We're small business owners. We have to steer our ships, no pun intended. We've got to manage staff. We are the CEO working the line next to the line worker, right? We've got to market. We've got to deal with bill paying. Nobody gets us like us. And
as
I
I've
think
said for a
that's
long
why
time, orthodontics sits at the center of almost every major technology and consumer trend, because you're kind of retail focused. So you kind of have this positioning where you're on the street corners and you're outward facing, and you've got to deal with the youngest generation always. You're seeing patients, between the young kids are about 7 to 15,
I never
18.
thought about that. I never thought we're always dealing with the youngest generation.
Always the youngest generation. You've always told me like the cool kids toys before anybody else knows. You're like, yeah, because I see the 7-year-old playing with toys, so I know what the big Christmas.
I'm like, what is that thing you're playing with? Oh, that's a fidget spinner. A what?
Exactly. So you're dealing with the youngest generation of patients, and then you had millennial parents. Now you're going to deal with Gen Z parents, right? So how are they going to be different? And you're always dealing with different generations. And then look at all the technologies. There is no one else using 3D printers. Sorry, that was 10, 15 years ago when we were writing reports about 3D printers and how there were going to be 3D printers for food, and maybe every home in America is going to have a 3D printer for what? The only people that have figured it out are people using 3D printers in their offices to print trays.
Is that true? Other than hobbyists who are playing with it at home?
Yeah, that's it. It's pretty much just hobbyists. There was this big idea that you'd have like the FedEx type model where they'd have a lot of 3D printers, and instead of ordering from Amazon, whatever the design was would just get sent over to the 3D printing shop, and they would just make your product locally.
Got it. That didn't quite, but I will tell you, they do print food. There is the meat and fish printer that I saw come out of Israel. That was really, you pick your steak.
Sure, and that's what, years out still. Yes, the Star Trek replicator. So at some point, the Star Trek replicator may come to the kitchen near you. But for right now, you're the only ones doing that. And then you're talking about, look at using intraoral scanners or CBCTs, digital twins, manipulating those things.
It is interesting. No, when we talk to people in technology and they say, oh, you're an orthodontist? Yeah, well, I do 3D printing. They go, how do you know about 3D printing? And, we're manipulating 3D prints. Like, if you go to my high school educated
looking
assistant,
at 4D printing soon.
If you go to my high school educated assistant, no college, no technology background, I can go to her. This is mind boggling. I can say to her, hey, have you sent that STL file yet? Like, she understands everything about an STL file, how it gets manipulated, what happens with it. And like 90% of the people out on the planet have no idea what she's talking about. And for us, it's like, you don't know what an STL file is? I mean, come on.
Think about the integration of AI. I mean, and look, I'm a tech evangelist, so I like to push the stuff in front of you, and then we push it in front of the OrthoPreneurs community. But everybody's adopting these new technologies much faster and quicker. I mean, that's it. It's just ortho sits at the center of so many of these trends, and it gets adopted because you have to remain competitive. And yeah, we talk about this all the time, right? Think about other doctors who are just, they bill regular insurance and they don't really care. They let patients sit in their rooms for 30 minutes, an hour. How are you going to make an appointment with them? Well, you have to call to schedule it. That's it. Sorry. There's no other way to do it. And they just don't care.
I've really enjoyed our time together here today, Mike. I think it gave people just a little glimpse in sort of the conversations that we have and the things we have to deal with and what goes on at meetings. And, to tell everybody out there, if something isn't perfect or something isn't the way you want it, or you'd rather be at this hotel, trust me when I tell you, it's not because of lack of trying. There's so many factors outside of my control, outside of Mike's control, outside of anybody's control, that if something went wrong, I promise you, we did everything we possibly could to make it right. But there's thousands of moving pieces for every summit. And we try to be everywhere, but it's impossible. And so just know, give
One more
benefit of the
behind the
doubt.
scenes. How about
I'm
one
sorry?
more behind the scenes? Denver, Sheraton, the buses.
Oh my God. I tried to forget about the buses. By the way,
It's impossible.
for those of you who saw me do my song and dance act, as you were lining up that night to go to Grizzly Rose, I think it was, right? Everybody was going to Grizzly Rose, and we found out how much time before the buses were supposed to. We had how many buses? Like 10 buses
We
that were
had
going
10 we had 10 50-person motor coaches that were
like
supposed
the
to
kind of motor
arrive.
coach you take,
Yep.
from one city to
And
another. Like really
and
nice motor coaches.
I got a call, I think at 3 p.m. on Friday, letting me know, Mike, there's only going to be six buses or seven buses.
I don't even think it was six.
No.
I think it
That
was
was the first phone call I got.
okay.
Was, Mike, we have a few that aren't going to be there, but we're going to add some other ones to help you out. And I said, okay, fine. It happens. We'll roll with it, no problem. Then I got a call at 5 p.m. letting me know that I would have one. There was going to be one motor coach for the group. And at that point, what do you do? Friday at 5 p.m., you start making phone calls, and who's open? Nobody, because it's Friday and it's 5 p.m. And so that's when you've got people that, thank God we had a good DMC, which is a destination management company, that had some connections. They started calling some of their contacts and piecing together, right? It was like a,
We were doing every bus, every car. We were going to get Uber codes. So people didn't realize at the time they were getting frustrated, but we literally found out 2 hours before the buses were to take people that you have no buses, you have nothing.
yeah,
And so we have 1,000 people at a hotel, and we've got to get them 15, 20 minutes away to the party. And so these are the sorts of things we deal with on a regular basis that we want to be like Disney, folks. We don't want you to see what's going on behind the scenes so that you can enjoy the experience more. But sometimes, unfortunately, things are outside our control and they leak out and you end up being a part of it. And we apologize. But always remember this: Mike works really hard to make your experience better than you could ever want it to be. When things don't go perfectly, just remember these words: benefit of the doubt. Just benefit of the doubt. Nobody's out to screw you.
yeah,
Nobody's out to hurt you. Seek first to understand and then to be understood, as Stephen Covey would say. And so, Mike, I want to say thank you not only for helping on every step of the journey of orthopreneurs, but for being here today. I think we gave some people some great stories, some great insight. And if you ever need to reach out to Mike for any reason, you want to learn more about a summit, you want to learn more about OrthoPreneurs RD, you want to learn about OrthoPreneurs University, you want to ask him a question about Summit, whatever, you can always reach Mike at support@orthopreneurs.com. They'll make sure they route the message to him, so there's no problem whatsoever. That's support@orthopreneurs.com. We have more than one person who will answer that. It could be Mike, could be Jennifer, it could be anybody. But just know that he's always working tirelessly to help make your experience as good as it can be. And so thanks, Mike, for everything you do and for being here today.
for sure. Thank you.